The ladder shook beneath her weight. Elena Morales gripped the weathered wood with white knuckles, her breath coming in short gasps as October wind tore through the canyon. 20 feet below, the rocky earth waited. Above, the torn section of corrugated metal roof flapped like a wounded bird, each gust threatening to rip it completely free. She was 32 years old. She owned nothing but this failing ranch house, 12 goats, and a reputation that kept the entire town of Redstone at arm's length. The hammer slipped from her belt and tumbled down, clanging against stone. Elena didn't watch it fall. Her eyes stayed fixed on the rusty nail she needed to drive through metal into beam before the storm hit. Her father's words echoed in her memory. A Morales doesn't ask for help. A Morales doesn't quit. Her father had been dead 3 years. The bank would take the property in 6 weeks. The ladder shook again, harder this time. Not from wind. "Ma'am, that ladder's got a split third rung. You put your weight on it again, you're going to meet the ground in a way you won't enjoy." Elena's head snapped down. A man sat astride a bay horse at the base of her ladder. 35, maybe 40. Worn denim jacket over a faded black shirt. Dusty hat tipped back just enough to show sun-weathered features and eyes the color of creek water after rain. He wasn't smiling, but something in his expression wasn't judgment either. "I'm fine," Elena said, her accent thickening the way it always did when she was angry or afraid. "This is private property." "Yes, ma'am." He dismounted in one fluid motion, his boots hitting earth with a soft thud. "But that ladder's about to make it hospital property, and I can't in good conscience ride by and watch someone fall. I've been climbing ladders since I was 6 years old. I don't doubt it." He retrieved her hammer, examining the wooden handle. "But here's your grandfather's hammer, judging by the wear pattern. Be ashamed to bury it with you when you could just let someone steady the ladder instead." Elena stared down at him. The wind pulled strands of dark hair from her braid, whipping them across her face. She'd been alone on this ranch for 14 months, since the day her father collapsed in the south pasture and the town decided she was cursed. Since the day Marcus Santiago rode away without looking back, taking their engagement ring and her last shred of reputation with him. The stranger was already gripping the ladder's sides, his shoulders bracing it against the wind. "I don't need." "I know," he interrupted quietly. "But the goats need that roof fixed before the rain comes. And they don't care about pride." Something in his voice, something worn and understanding, made Elena's throat tighten. She turned back to the roof without another word and climbed. For 20 minutes, they worked in silence. He steadied. She hammered. When she needed the tin snips from her toolbox, he passed them up without being asked. When she finished one section and needed to move the ladder, he was already repositioning it. The first drops of rain fell as she hammered the final nail. Elena descended carefully, her arms shaking from exertion. When her boots touched ground, the stranger stepped back, respectful distance maintained. Up close, she could see the scar that ran from his left temple into his hairline, the calluses on his hands that marked him as someone who'd spent his life working, not talking. "Thank you," she forced out. He nodded once, retrieving his hat from where he'd hung it on a fence post. "Storm's going to be a hard one. You got enough firewood stacked?" Elena glanced at the meager pile by her door, enough for maybe 3 days. "I'll manage." His eyes followed her gaze. Something shifted in his expression, but he didn't argue. He simply walked to his horse, swung back into the saddle with the ease of someone born to it, and touched his hat brim. "Name's Caleb Reed, ma'am. I'll be camped in the North Valley if you need anything. Won't bother you otherwise." "Why would you camp there?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "There's nothing in the North Valley but scrub brush and rattlesnakes." "Because I don't have anywhere else to be." His voice was matter-of-fact, without self-pity. "And because the town's got enough opinions about drifters without me giving them more ammunition." He turned his horse. Elena watched him ride toward the darkening hills, the rain beginning to fall in earnest now, cold and unforgiving. She should go inside. She should bar the door and forget about the stranger with careful hands and eyes that understood too much. Instead, she heard herself call out, "The barn's empty. There's hay in the loft and it's dry. Storm like this, you'd be a fool to stay in a tent." Caleb turned in his saddle. For the first time, something like surprise crossed his features. Then, slowly, he smiled, not wide, not cocky, just a small quirk of his mouth that somehow felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Much obliged, ma'am." Elena nodded curtly and walked toward her house, her spine rigid, refusing to watch him lead his horse toward the barn. Refusing to wonder why, for the first time in 14 months, the crushing loneliness felt just a fraction lighter. Inside, she stood at the window as lightning split the sky. The barn door closed. A lantern flickered to life in the hayloft window. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass and allowed herself one moment of weakness, one moment to imagine what it might feel like to not face the storm alone. Then she built her fire, heated her coffee, and reminded herself that morning would come, the stranger would leave, and nothing would have changed. But when dawn broke gray and wet, the stranger was still there, and stacked against her cabin wall so neatly she almost missed it was enough split firewood to last 2 months. Act 2. The slow thaw. Caleb was gone by the time Elena emerged from her house. The firewood stood in perfect cords, each piece split to uniform size. She ran her hand over the smooth ends, still feeling the ghost of the axe blade's passage. This was hours of work. This was someone who'd risen before dawn in the cold and rain, and labored while she slept. She should be angry. She should feel obligated, trapped. Instead, she felt something dangerous. Hope. The goats needed milking. Elena forced herself through morning routines, her mind circling the question of why a drifter would show such kindness to a woman whose name was spoken like a curse in town. By noon, she'd convinced herself he'd moved on, taken what little charity he needed, and ridden out before she could complicate his life. Then she saw the smoke, a thin line rising from the north pasture, where the old fence line had rotted through. Elena grabbed her father's rifle not to threaten, just to have, and walked toward it. Caleb was resetting fence posts. He worked with methodical precision, digging post holes in the rocky soil with a weathered spade, setting cedar posts, tamping earth. His jacket hung from a nearby branch. Sweat darkened his shirt despite the cold air. His horse grazed nearby, ground-tied, watching the work with patient eyes. Elena stopped 10 feet away. "You're on my land." "Yes, ma'am." He didn't stop working. "Noticed this fence was down when I rode in yesterday. Goats could wander. Coyotes could get in. Figured I'd fix it." "I didn't ask you to." "No, ma'am." He tamped earth around another post, testing its stability with his weight. "But I'm here, and the work needs doing, and I'm not much use at sitting idle." Elena watched him move to the next hole. "Why? Why what? Why are you doing this?" Her voice cracked slightly. She hated the vulnerability in it. "What do you want?" Caleb straightened slowly, meeting her eyes. His expression was open, honest in a way that felt almost painful to witness. "I want to be useful, ma'am. That's all. World's got enough people taking. I'd rather be someone who gives back when I can. Nobody does something for nothing. Some people do." He pulled off his work gloves, tucking them into his belt. "I had someone do something for nothing for me once, changed my life. Figured I'd pay it forward when the chance came." Elena felt the rifle grow heavy in her hands. "I can't pay you. I can barely feed myself." "Didn't ask for payment." "I can't." She struggled with the words, with the unfamiliar shape of them. "I can't let you work for free." Caleb studied her for a long moment. Then he gestured toward the fence line. "Tell you what, I'll keep working on this fence if you'll let me buy fresh milk and maybe some eggs if you've got chickens. Been living on hardtack and jerky for 3 weeks. Real food would be worth more than any wage. I don't have chickens, just goats. Goat milk's fine by me." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to send him away before she started depending on him, before she let herself believe someone might stay. But the fence line stretched for another 100 yards, all of it rotting, all of it beyond her ability to fix alone. "Fine," she said finally, "but I'm cooking dinner tonight. You can eat at the house. It's warmer than the barn." Surprise flickered across his face again, that same small softening she'd seen yesterday. "Yes, ma'am. I'd be honored." Elena turned and walked back toward the house before he could see the flush rising in her cheeks. Behind her, the rhythmic sound of the spade resumed. Dinner was simple: beans, cornbread, and the last of the summer tomatoes she'd canned. Elena sat 2 places at her small table, with hands that shook slightly. She couldn't remember the last time she'd shared a meal with another person, couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her without pity or contempt. Caleb arrived as the sun set, his hair damp from washing at the pump, his shirt changed to a cleaner one. He removed his hat at the door and stood uncertainly until Elena gestured him to sit. They ate in silence at first. Elena watched him from the corner of her eye, the way he savored each bite, the way he ate with steady focus, the way he paused to close his eyes in what might have been prayer or simple gratitude. "This is excellent, ma'am," he said finally. "Best meal I've had in months." "It's just beans. It's more than that." He met her eyes. "It's hospitality. It's kindness. That's worth more than fancy food." Elena felt heat rise in her face again. She looked down at her plate. "You don't have to flatter me. I'm not flattering you. I'm telling you the truth." His voice was gentle but firm. "I know what it's like to be hungry not just for food, but for human decency. You're giving me both. I won't forget it. I won't forget it." Something in Elena's chest cracked. "Why are you really here? In this valley, I mean. It's not on the way to anywhere." Caleb was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "I was working a ranch up north. Good work, good people. But the foreman's son took a shine to gambling. Lost money he didn't have. Started stealing from the ranch accounts to cover his debts." Elena waited, sensing there was more. "I caught him at it, confronted him. He denied it, said I was the one stealing." Caleb's voice remained steady, but something dark passed behind his eyes. "Foreman believed his son. Had me arrested. By the time they sorted it out and found the real evidence, I'd been in jail 3 weeks. Lost my reputation, lost my job, lost everything that mattered. That's not fair." "No, ma'am, it's not." He smiled, but it was tinged with old pain. "But fair doesn't always factor into life. When they let me out, I realized I had 2 choices: spend my days bitter, or spend them trying to be the person I still wanted to be, regardless of what others thought." Elena's throat tightened. "How did you choose the second one?" "By remembering that I'm not defined by what happened to me. I'm defined by what I do next." He met her eyes fully then, and something passed between them: understanding, recognition of kindred damage. "Seems to me you might know something about that." Elena looked away, blinking hard. "The town says I'm cursed. They say my father died because of something I did. They say I drove away my fiancé with my bad luck. What do you say?" "I say my father worked himself to death trying to prove he was as good as any Anglo rancher. I say my fiancé left because he loved the idea of me more than the reality. I say I'm tired of being judged for things that aren't my fault." "Then maybe," Caleb said quietly, "we're both in the right place. 2 people who know what it's like to be condemned without trial. 2 people who get to decide their own story from here." Elena met his eyes, and for the first time in 14 months, she felt seen. Not pitied, not judged, just seen. "Help me save this ranch," she whispered. "Help me prove I can do this. The bank comes in 6 weeks. If I can show them the property's productive, that the fences are repaired and the goats are thriving, if I can show them I'm making it work, they might give me an extension." Caleb nodded slowly. "Then that's what we'll do. I can't pay you. I told you, I don't want payment. I want purpose. You're offering me both." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She stood abruptly, carrying dishes to the wash basin before he could see them fall. "You can stay in the barn as long as you need, There's a spare room in the house, but I don't. People would talk. Barn's fine, Caleb said, understanding in his voice. I appreciate the offer regardless. When he left that night, Elena stood at the window and watched the lantern light bloom again in the hayloft. For the first time since her father died, the ranch didn't feel quite so empty. For the first time in her life, she let herself imagine what partnership might feel like. The days fell into rhythm. Caleb worked the fence line, repaired the barn door, fixed the water pump that had been sputtering. Elena tended the goats, preserved the last of the autumn harvest, and slowly, so slowly, began to trust that he wouldn't disappear. They spoke in fragments at first, small exchanges over morning coffee, brief consultations about which repairs to prioritize. But gradually, the fragments lengthened into conversations, the conversations into stories, the stories into the kind of sharing that happens when two wounded people recognize safety in each other. Elena learned that Caleb had grown up on a ranch in Wyoming, that his mother had died when he was young, that he'd learned to read by lantern light, studying his older sister's school books after she went to bed, that he'd loved a woman once, but she'd chosen a merchant with money over a cowboy with dreams. Caleb learned that Elena's mother had crossed the border with nothing but determination and a baby in her arms, that Elena had taught herself English by reading discarded newspapers in town, that her father had bought this land with 20 years of saved wages and pride that wouldn't bend, that Marcus Santiago had promised her forever, then vanished the day after her father's funeral when he realized the ranch came with debt, not inheritance. He didn't love you, Caleb said one evening as they reinforced the goat pen. He loved what he thought you represented. There's a difference. How do you know? Because when you love someone, you don't leave them at their lowest. You dig in, you stay, you fight alongside them. He hammered a nail with more force than necessary. You don't wait until it's convenient. Elena studied his profile in the fading light. Did you stay? With the woman you loved? I tried to. She's the one who left. He met her eyes. Which is how I learned the same lesson from the other side. Real love doesn't count the cost. It doesn't keep score. It just shows up, day after day, especially when things are hard. Is that what you're doing here? Showing up? Caleb set down his hammer carefully. I'm doing what feels right. What feels right is being here, helping you. If that's showing up, then yes. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. What happens when the 6 weeks are over? When the bank makes their decision? What do you want to happen? The question hung in the air between them, weighted with possibilities neither of them had quite voiced. Elena opened her mouth, then closed it, fear strangling the words. Caleb didn't push. He simply returned to his work, and Elena was grateful for the grace of his patience. The trouble came on a Saturday. Elena rode into Redstone for supplies, flour, salt, medicine for one of the goats. She'd been avoiding town, sending lists with the mail carrier, but some things required her presence. Some things couldn't be delegated. She felt the stares the moment she dismounted on Main Street. The whispers started immediately. That's Elena Morales, the cursed one. Heard she's got some drifter living on her property now. Probably another one who'll rob her blind. Probably something worse. Elena kept her eyes forward and walked into the general store. Marcus Santiago was there. He stood at the counter, well-dressed, his hair pomaded, speaking with the store owner about an order. He turned as the bell chimed, and his eyes landed on Elena. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus smiled the charming smile that had once made her heart race. Elena, it's been a while. Marcus. Her voice was flat. I heard you're still trying to make a go of that ranch. He shook his head with what might have been genuine concern or might have been condescension. You know you can sell it. Take the money and start fresh somewhere. No shame in admitting when something's too big to handle alone. I'm not alone. Marcus's expression shifted. Yes, I heard about your house guest. Elena, you need to be careful. A woman in your position can't afford rumors. My position? Anger flared hot in her chest. You mean the position you left me in when you walked away? I had my reasons. You had your cowardice. Elena stepped closer, her voice low and fierce. You promised forever, Marcus. You promised to build a life with me. Then my father died and suddenly forever became too expensive. It wasn't about money. It was only about money. Elena felt 14 months of suppressed rage rising. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of marrying into the Morales property, and when you realized it came with work instead of profit, you disappeared. That's not fair. No, Elena said quietly. It's not, but it's true. She turned to the store owner, purchased her supplies with shaking hands, and walked out into the bright sunlight. Behind her, she heard Marcus call her name, but she didn't turn. She didn't stop until she was mounted and riding out of town, her vision blurred with tears of anger and vindication. She didn't see the rider following her until she was nearly home. Caleb was mending tack when Elena rode in hard, her horse lathered and breathing heavy. He dropped the bridle immediately and went to her. What happened? Nothing. Elena dismounted, her movements jerky. Everything. I don't know. A rider appeared over the rise, Marcus, on a glossy black gelding that probably cost more than Elena's entire herd. He pulled up short when he saw Caleb. You must be the drifter. Marcus's tone was carefully neutral, but his eyes were assessing, judging. I'm Caleb Reed. Caleb's voice was equally neutral. And you are? Marcus Santiago, Elena's fiancé. Former fiancé, Elena corrected sharply. What are you doing here, Marcus? I came to talk sense into you. Marcus dismounted, his movements too smooth, too confident. Elena, this man, you don't know anything about him. He could be dangerous. He could be using you. Using me for what? Elena laughed bitterly. I have nothing to take. You have property. You have. Marcus glanced at Caleb, something ugly crossing his features. You have a reputation to protect. What's left of it? Caleb stepped forward slightly, his body language protective without being aggressive. Mr. Santiago, I think the lady asked you to leave. I'm not talking to you. Then listen instead. Caleb's voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath it. Elena doesn't need your concern or your judgment. She needs support. She needs people who believe in her. If you're not offering that, then you should ride out. Marcus's face flushed. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm someone who stayed when it mattered. The words landed like a blow. Marcus's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Elena, and something in her expression must have told him everything he needed to know. You're making a mistake, he said finally. The mistake was believing you loved me, Elena replied. The mistake was thinking I needed saving by someone like you. I don't need saving, Marcus. I need respect, and Caleb gives me that. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, then at Caleb, then back to Elena. Fine. When this all falls apart, when he leaves you, just like everyone says he will, don't come crying to me. He mounted and rode away without looking back. Elena stood trembling, her hands clenched into fists. Caleb waited, giving her space, until she finally turned to him. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? For dragging you into my mess. For Elena. Caleb stepped closer, his voice gentle. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to stay. I'm still choosing it. And nothing that man said changes that. Why? The word broke on a sob. Why do you care about me? Why does it matter to you if I save this ranch? Caleb reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and when she didn't, he brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Because you deserve to have someone believe in you. Because you're strong and brave, and you're fighting for something that matters. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth staying for. Elena closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm afraid, she admitted. I'm afraid to let you in. I'm afraid you'll leave like everyone else. I'm afraid too, Caleb said quietly. I'm afraid I'm not good enough, that I can't help you save this place, that I'll let you down. But being afraid doesn't mean we stop trying. It means we try together." Elena opened her eyes and found him watching her with an expression so open, so honest, that it stole her breath. "Together? If you'll have me, not just for 6 weeks, not just until the bank comes, but after, whatever that looks like. You'd stay, even if we lose the ranch?" "I'd stay," Caleb said firmly. "Because I'm not here for the property, Elena. I'm here for you." Elena felt something break open in her chest, something that had been frozen for so long she'd forgotten it could thaw. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, pressing her face into his shoulder, and felt his arms come around her in return. They stood like that as the sun set. Two damaged people choosing hope over fear, choosing each other over the safety of isolation. "We're going to save this ranch," Elena whispered against his shirt. "Yes," Caleb agreed. "We are."